local CVS, Meijer Grocery, or online at Amazon or newnordicusa.com.
When severe weather strikes, bad, minutes, even seconds matter.
This is an early heads up for southern Rutherford County.
Rutherford Weather brings you live radar and expert meteorologist insight, giving you the early heads up when storms threaten.
A lot of areas are going to see some impacts from this storm.
From analysis to live camera views, we keep you informed before, during, and after the storm.
I think the vast majority of the hail with this now is going to be quarter to perhaps golf ball size.
Rutherford Weather. Stay ahead of the storm.
We're the Good Neighbor Network. FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro. FM 100.5 Smyrna. Audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Good morning. This is Bill Krause on a beautiful, rainy, but it's nice. Love the rain. Thursday morning, the WGNS Radio Roundtable. And we have a gentleman here just celebrated a birthday the first day of summer, June 21st. And you turn 95 years old. Bless your heart. Mr. Charles Jones. And with Mr. Jones, we have certainly no stranger to WGNS, dear friend, dear associate, our great state legislator, Mr. Mike Sparks. You don't mind if I call you Charles, do you? Or do you like Chuck? What have you been called?
I was Chuck in Michigan, but I'm Charles in Tennessee.
All right, but you never like to be called late for breakfast? Gotcha. Charles or Chuck, tell us about yourself in that long and successful life. You were born in Michigan?
Born in Tennessee.
Oh, in Tennessee.
Jackson County, Gainsboro.
All right.
Yeah, my grandfather, whom I was named after, was Charles Pyron, and he lived in a community called Bullard's Creek outside of Gainsboro, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And I was born on his farm in June 21st, 1930.
Wow. So you were born right after the Depression began, the crash of the banks.
They waited for me.
And then they celebrated.
Yeah.
And were you raised in Western Tennessee?
Raised in Nashville.
In Nashville.
And left at age 19 and was gone for about 50 years and came back.
What part? You were in Michigan?
Went to graduate school in Michigan, and then I lived in Washington, D.C. for about 20 years.
And you survived Washington?
Well, I used to, I did programs for national associations. I developed member benefit programs,
mm-hmm.
and with NEA and retired officers, different groups like that.
So you were basically a support service to nonprofits and providing...
We provided services for nonprofits, yes.
Most people don't realize that the financial strength of many, many nonprofits from A to Z are the services and product that they offer their membership. So I would assume that the product that you were providing to the nonprofits was a benefit and attraction to the membership of those respective organizations.
Yes, our best client was the Retired Officers Association. They had, at that time, 300,000 members who are all retired officers. And when we checked their credit rating, they said you don't have to check their credit. So we basically had 300,000 customers that were already approved for anything they wanted to buy.
Basically in the insurance, retirement?
I was in the automotive end of it, but
okay.
It would have been true for anything. But they could just walk into a dealership and say, give me that white one, and the guy would call me, and it took 30 minutes to get it delivered.
I have to ask this almost as kind of a stupid question on my part. Can I assume that these services are still available to memberships?
They probably left when I left.
Wow.
I mean, that one. We were the ones that controlled the automobile program. We had a national account with GM, Ford, and Chrysler.
Mm-hmm.
And we had an unlimited line of credit available for that particular group. And so we looked like a big outfit, but we're really only half a dozen people.
But actually, you were making the American car manufacturer very happy and healthy because you're directing your customer to the American manufacturer.
When we first talked to them, they said, well, come back after you buy 1,000 cars a year and we'll let you make an application. And so I kind of countered. I said, why don't you give me the national account, and if I don't buy 1,000 cars a year, you can take it away. And the guy thought for a minute, and he said, I think I can do that. So that's how it got started.
And did you beat that number?
Quite a bit.
I can understand. So you said 50 years later, you returned to Middle Tennessee. What brought you back to Middle Tennessee, besides it's a lovely place to be?
Well, I had gone to school at David Lipscomb, and then my daughters came here to go to school, and they got married and stayed on, so it was really our daughters and our grandchildren that brought us back.
You wonder, I'm in that same situation. That's what brought us to Tennessee, our daughter and a growing family. You wonder how many people are in Tennessee that came, for those of us who ran away from California. Children and grandchildren is a major magnet for people to come.
I think it's kind of like the ode to the country church, where it said, I came to scorn and stayed to pray.
Oh, I love that. That is a great one. Once you got to Nashville and Middle Tennessee, you were still energetic, enthusiastic, committed, and passionate about life and what you did?
I was at the right age to retire, but I didn't have the good sense to retire, so I've probably done more since I came back at age 60 than I had done prior to that. We started buying empty buildings. I called it a wheat and straw enterprise. When a corporation invests money in something and they expect to get a return greater than the investment, I call it a wheat enterprise. And then after 20 or 30 years, when it's no longer feasible to put more capital into it, and they turn it loose and it's just an empty space, then that's a straw enterprise, and someone like myself comes along and tries to repurpose it. I never made the mistake of trying to do something that the smart people had given up on. I always tried to find a new purpose for something.
I would imagine that that acceleration of vacant property was enhanced by COVID, with the amount of people deciding, and mandated to stay at home and work telecommunication rather than physically take a spot at an office or a store.
That was probably a lot of it, but Amazon, I think, was their main COVID.
Oh, okay.
Things began to be marketed by Amazon more efficiently than it could be by department stores.
The downtown department store became almost a dinosaur in many, many cities throughout the country. I would say most cities in the country.
Yeah, we have our largest purchase was an empty mall in Florida where the whole mall was empty, and we bought it and we're repurposing it down by Tampa Bay.
What were some of the successes of repurposing? You're taking a building that previously was location, a building that was a milestone in the commercial and the business community of the downtown or civic area. What did you repurpose them to?
Well, our first, it really wasn't a major enterprise. It was just 60,000 feet. But we bought the old St. Bernard Convent building and made it into an office building. That was down by Vanderbilt. And we kept the chapel for weddings and special events. So that was our first venture. And then you remember the movie Driving Miss Daisy?
Oh, absolutely.
We bought the old Worthen bag factory and converted it into loft apartments. And that was over in Germantown, and it kind of helped revitalize Germantown. now property over there is more expensive than in most of Nashville.
As I've said on the news, without getting too political, there will be a lot of new arrivals to Middle Tennessee from New York City, I assume. I shouldn't assume, because most hopefully, and I'm going to say this editorially, that does not happen. What I'm talking about of a new mayor in New York City would be a disaster, What have you done, just examples here in Rutherford County and the Murfreesboro area?
Well, we had a meeting recently with Laverne, and we're talking about doing maybe a public-private venture where we build a couple hundred apartments and then let the tenants build equity simply by living there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're calling it a public-private enterprise. I tried that on some condos and houses where we let the tenants build equity, and within a 5-year period, every participant built at least $50,000 of equity toward a down payment on something else if they wanted to do it.
I personally am doing and have done the last 6 years exactly the same thing. Been buying not large complexes, but buying individual homes and condominiums. Look for young men and young women, chance for the first house, rent them, and exactly what I do within the lease option. The equity on the loan is transferred to what will be either the ability to buy the property that they're living in, or, as you say, use it for something else.
I think it's a wonderful concept and very reasonable, because in effect your tenant buys the property and donates it to you, so it's very reasonable to share the equity with them.
So the tenant buys the property.
No,
You buy the property and then make it available on a tenancy.
Yeah, I make the down payment,
Right.
and the tenants, by making monthly payments, take care of the mortgage.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by they buy the property, but not literally.
Mike.
Well, I was going to say, I talk about weird coincidences. I call them God wink moments, and they're so coincidental and it's so improbable that it's got to be a God wink moment. But Charles, way I know Mr. Jones here, was I was on the phone to Brenda Bryant. Is it okay if I tell the story, Charles? Is it okay? And Brenda and I are close. She's the one that had the church in Laverne that literally burned down. The church burned, and not one cross was burned, not one Bible was burned. The pulpit was fine, but the metal chairs, everything just melted away. Now, folks could say that's just a coincidence, and but I call it a God thing. Anyways, but somebody called her the next day, had her in another building. She's in so the church. Anyways, my son owned this house that he had bought when he was 19 or 20, Preston, and he had it for a few years, put the hardwood floor in himself. He bartered for the AC unit, was really proud for him to put it all in, and he decided he wanted to sell the house. Well, I said, well, let's just sell it ourselves. And I was happened to talk to Brenda, and it's the only one I talked to. I said, yeah, we're gonna sell Preston's house. She goes, I'd like to find something. So she ended up getting with Miss Jones here. I remember going to do the walkthrough. You're the only one that knew about it. You're the only one we told about it. So he ended up buying it. And then Brenda, sadly, she lost her husband, 5 years ago, I guess. She went through, really went through a tough time. And she's helped some other ladies that I guess you could say, just on the verge of homelessness. And exactly what you're talking about doing, Mr. Jones did this. So when you hear people talk about issues, you two guys are living it, you're doing it, you're not just talking about it. That's what I like about both y'all. And you're advocates for creativeness and affordable housing. Now, some people could call that crazy. Some haters could belittle that and say there's nothing you can do, Mike. But you two guys are living it, you're doing it. I watched this. I watched Brenda just close out on this deal a year ago. And I hope you don't mind me sharing this, Mr. Jones, because she put $170,000 in her pocket. Now, people say, that can't be done, Mike. That's impossible. But, Mr. Jones, with God, all things are possible. Am I right?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's better to be the most blessed person than to be the smartest person.
Yes, and see, the most creative person in real estate, who the most smartest person, it would be far-fetched to put that deal together. Mm-hmm. But it ended up happening. It was the Lord put that deal together. I mean, do you disagree with me, Mr. Jones?
Well, when you see, I think according to the book of Ephesians, when you are converted and become a new person, you're created unto good works. And where in your previous life, you were focused on things that were primarily of self-interest.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
After you become converted and find a new life, you develop interest outside yourself.
Now, I don't know whether you do it this way, and folks are out there saying, yes, that's very nice, you're very blessed, you're very loving to your fellow man. There is a certain income that I do receive from it.
Yes, sir. Well, you got a good return, right?
Well, no, and the income is from the down payment is then a second trust deed at 4%. At 4% trust deed, they don't have to pay the monthly payment at such time of purchase. The down payment that I initially put in draws on time of sale on a new loan 4% interest based upon the accrued monthly and through yearly basis. Yeah. They receive the equity every time they make a monthly payment every month. The principal that the bank is giving credit to goes to them. So they end up with, and they generally are buying their own, they're buying where they live. There's a little sidebar to it that I think is fascinating, and I never thought about it this way. I sit on 3 boards of directors of homeowners associations. And
Bless your heart.
Well, yes,
Bless
my
your heart.
sympathies will be accepted.
Yes.
And HOAs certainly have a great issue and great problem with the individual homeowner maintenance. And I have, without exception, of everybody I've got in the HOAs, both that I sit on boards and other HOAs, I get compliments of how exceptional our residents are in property
Because they got
care.
skin in the game.
They've got skin in the game, and they become, in fact, they want to run for the board. I said, can't do that, and even as a proxy, can't do that. Tell me about Milky Wave. When I think of Milky Wave, I'm thinking of a nice chocolate bar, which I'm not a chocolate fan. My wife is a great chocolate fan of Milky Wave. And what was your association relationship there?
Well, Frank Mars was interested in developing a racehorse farm, and he was planning on doing that in Florida. But the people who manufactured the boxes that the Milky Ways were shipped in were from Middle Tennessee, and they were an acquaintance of his. And they said, instead of Florida, why don't you look at Middle Tennessee as a potential place to build your racehorse farm? And so he somehow came to Giles County, and he probably had a realtor buy up 24 farms for him.
Just above Pulaski?
They were north of Pulaski. And he bought up 24 farms, totaling about 2,700 acres. And then he put a lot of candy bar money into it and named it after the candy bar. And so he developed it into a racehorse farm. And in 1934, they won more races than any Kentucky or any other state or farm that was in any other state in the year 1934.
Right in the middle of the Depression.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he was, and it wouldn't sound like a lot of money now, but I think it was like $250,000, $300,000 that he cleared that year in horsing. Most people, if they're involved with horses, it's a hobby that's very expensive, but Mr. Mars was able to make money on it.
And something, correct me if I may be wrong, roughly 600 acres is still within the...
There's 1,100 acres still in the farm.
Oh, is it still?
Yeah.
I was a little low on that. And the house is beautiful, and the house is made available for parties, receptions, activity.
Yeah, the manor house is about 25,000 square feet. And then it's got barns that are made into event centers. They've got one barn that will accommodate about 400 people for a wedding. So it's and then we keep the racetrack fixed up, but we don't have races there anymore.
So your specific responsibility and association with the Mars property was and is?
Well, I'm the owner, but I think of myself as Mr. Mars still being the owner. I'm kind of the maintenance guy.
And you've never spent the night in the home, right? You've
what?
never spent the night at the farm.
No, not yet.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I might someday.
So you visited quite often?
My daughter, Lynn, takes care of it. She does an efficient job of managing, and I'm just kind of a silent partner.
With a wealth of experience. What are some of the other projects you're currently doing at this point? And I know the rental development to home ownership is very uppermost in your priorities.
Well, probably in Nashville, the most interesting property was the Worthen Bag Factory, which was after the Civil War. There was a company called Hamilton Mills, I believe, that either developed or bought that property, and they made it into a textile mill. And then later, the Worthen family has a fascinating story. Mr. Worthen Sr. came over from Germany in about probably the early I don't know the year, but anyway, he would buy or would collect burlap bags and recycle them. Mm-hmm. And so he had a horse and wagon, and he would resell burlap bags that he had reprocessed. And so when you see the movie of her refusing to ride in a chauffeur-driven car, it was
driving Miss Daisy.
It's because she had seen her father come home in the wintertime, cold from driving the wagon. She couldn't see his daughter riding in a chauffeur-driven automobile.
Wow.
And so it's a beautiful movie, a beautiful story, but they didn't start from rags to riches. They started from bags to riches.
Bags to riches. When I think of burlap bags, my immediate memory is racing. Kids racing in the burlap bags. I mean, that was the primary thing you used. I don't know what they use now.
They called it a tow sack race.
They were very, very popular. You're also very interested in affordable housing, which is certainly an issue in this nation.
Well, because things have increased in price so much. I don't know if they've increased in value, but they've increased in price so much and rental rates have gone up so much that young people, if they're paying to rent something, it's so expensive they don't have extra money then to build for a down payment. And so it makes sense to somebody that's got some cash or equity use their lines of credit and their cash to make down payments, and then let the tenants build equity simply by living there.
And you've been around a few years around the track. How do you identify, and there's got to be something from your experience and your inner sense that when you have a good tenant who is going to qualify and be part of this program? It isn't just anybody who answers an ad, we've got a 3-bedroom. You have a certain way of sensing the man and woman who will make the ideal candidate.
Well, I'm not a good judge of it because a guy could be robbing me and I would think he's the nicest guy in town. So, but I have people that can qualify the applicant to begin with, and then secondly, they have to live up to the requirements of the lease in order to qualify for building equity. If they don't make their payments, they don't participate in the deal.
Well, one of the things that's also a arm breaker in renting is what kind of deposit. I don't require deposits, believe it or not.
You don't?
I don't.
You
and I'm
serious?
going to take the risk because
Really?
I am going to make sure that I let my intuition, which works about 99% of the time, not always, but 99% of the time, I'm going to rest on the intuition.
Wow.
We're going to talk more about that right after we pay some bills.
Do you love WGNS Radio? Well, now you can watch it too. WGNS Big G TV brings your favorite radio shows live and on demand. From breaking news and community talk to Rutherford County's top local sports. We've got it all right at your fingertips. Watch anytime, anywhere. WGNS Big G TV, where radio comes to life.
This is Chip Walters, and I'm honored to be your 2024 MTAR Realtor of the Year. I'm with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates, and like many of you, I've seen the real estate market shift and change. People often ask, Chip, what's really going on? Well, that's a great question, and I believe in answering with solid, factual data. So let's cut through some of the noise. I invite you to reach out. Let's have a conversation about your real estate goals and the current market trends in your neighborhood. You can find all my contact information at choosechip.net.
First Shot, growing in Christ with life and athletic skills.
So we teach God's Word at everything we do to implant it in them so that they understand that the only way to get through the world is with God on their side.
First Shot founder and executive director Andy Herzer.
Our focus is on our inner city here at Patterson Park.
From academics to athletics, First Shot's focus is toward building a stronger, more courageous spirit to face opportunities and obstacles that our youth confront every day. To find out more about First Shot, go to firstshottn.org.
Insurance should be simple, not complicated. That's why at Rayburn Insurance, Agent Rick Hull cuts through the jargon and helps you understand your options clearly. He's committed to finding the right coverage that fits your unique needs and budget. Their team has been a trusted partner in the community since 1973. Ready to make insurance easy? Get with Rick Hall at Rayburn Insurance Agency. He's ready to help you get the protection you deserve.
Discover hidden treasures at the Garden Patch Thrift Shop on Spring Street in Murfreesboro. Whether you're searching for stylish clothing, sturdy furniture, or even large appliances, we've got them all at prices that you'll love. But here's the best part. 100% of your purchase supports Greenhouse Ministries, serving over 70 families a day. Your shopping dollars go straight back into the community, making a real impact. Shop smart and give back at the Garden Patch Thrift Shop on Spring Street in Murfreesboro.
Good Neighbor Events is brought to you by Old National Bank, the law offices of John Day, and AmeriCare Pest Control.
I've got pets.
Here's Tom Sweat with AmeriCare Services Incorporated.
AmeriCare's moisture control services include mold testing, mold remediation, crawl space repair, vapor barrier, sump pump installation, radon testing, radon mitigation, and basement waterproofing. If there's something wrong in your crawl space or basement, we can probably help. Just ask for a free inspection.
893-7111.
All the best of the best to get rid of your pets.
AmeriCare Services Incorporated.
Let's check those WGNS Good Neighbor events. You've heard us talking about Greenhouse Ministries. They've just opened the Spring House, and they need volunteers. The best thing to do is attend the volunteer orientation. That's every Thursday morning at 10 at Greenhouse Ministries, 307 South Academy Street. Oh, and if you want to be a part of the Live in the Borough Talent Show, which this year has a $1,000 cash prize, here's how you audition. Make a video of your talents and send it to Greenhouse. There's a local author book signing at the Lineball Library this Saturday. M.A. Grant will be there signing and selling copies of 3 historical fiction novels. Grant intertwines elements of social reform, romanticism, and historical accuracy, creating compelling narratives that stand the test of time. Meet local author M.A. Grant this Saturday at the Lineball Public Library. That's at 105 West Vine Street in downtown Murfreesboro. Oh, the Parkinson Support Group meets on the first and third Friday of each month at the St. Clair Street Senior Center. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Rutherford weather.
A heat advisory continuing for this afternoon, a mixture of clouds and sunshine with a chance for some widely scattered showers and storms, highs in the mid-90s. I'm meteorologist Michael Caron, News Radio WGNS. Right now it's 75.
Broadcasting from the Middle Tennessee Electric Studios, MTE Sharing Change has now donated more than $11 million to local nonprofits assisting worthy causes in our community. MTE, serving to make life better since 1936.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
This is Bill Krause, return segment on the WGNS Radio Roundtable Thursday morning edition. And we're having a delightful visit. Looks like the sun came out. It's beautiful. The rain has stopped. Always love the rain because it makes my flowers grow. Makes the air a little cooler. But we're visiting this morning with Mr. Charles Jones, who celebrated his 95th birthday last Friday. I guess it was June 21st. Was it last Friday, I think? Whatever.
Saturday, yeah.
Saturdays. Got to get my days right. And our state legislator, who is always out there helping people, Mr. Mike Sparks. I want to throw something at you, and I failed years ago. You mentioned you bought your first house in 1965. About that time, my parents were getting older, and they were paying rent, I think a high rent of $150 for a house. The owner wanted the house back to return back to Riverside, California, and they were in need of a place. They saw rents had gone way up. I saw a brand new condominium community open up, $19,900 for a new townhouse. You talk about prices. Payment was, I think, about $105 a month, principal and interest, etc. HOA, I think, was $10 a month. So I said to them, I had just recently been married, working, baby came and so forth. And I said to my parents, let me buy it. Let me put the down payment down, buy it and lease it back to you. And your rent will be much less than you were paying. You can pay P&I and so forth, and that will go from there. And they were so fantastic. It was a way of helping and gifting. When I met with my CPA to do my first year taxes after buying my first condo, I said, I would like to run this as a deduction. And the conversation turned to the fact, and they said, you're leasing it to your parents. I said, he said, the tax code does not allow you to lease rental property to members of family. I took it up through our two U.S. senators in California and appeared before Congress.
Really?
To testify. I said, how many people in America who are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, doing well financially, want to do something for their aging parents, providing housing where they can charge a rent significantly lower because of the tax break, the depreciation, the deduction, and so forth, and consequently you've got a win-win situation. It did not pass, so you get much consideration in Congress. If ever there was now it's a costly item in terms of the deduction, because if you added the number of millions of people who would say, you know, that's a great idea. I can provide housing, nice housing, good condo, and what have you, at least half of what the rent would be normally on that condo. And I said, that just has such merit. But that would be something even today, 60 years, almost 60 years later, that you could certainly see the housing factor, a child financially supporting the parent, and the child's, at that point, their equity was building up, their deductions were building up, and so forth, and everybody was a win-win.
Yes.
I tried to get some legislation passed, and it seemed to be going through, but then the lobbyists killed it, and that's probably what killed your deal.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Did you ever know?
I had the... I don't even know if Charles knows this story, and I think Dr. Krause, you know the story. I run legislation called the Tasker Study.
Yes,
Affordable Housing Tasker Study.
Yes.
And if folks don't know what Tasker is, it's Tennessee Advisory Council on Government Relations. And one thing I like about Tasker, it reminds me of Proverbs. There's wisdom in the multitude of counselors. It doesn't say there's wisdom in a congressman, wisdom in a state rep, wisdom in a senator. It's a multitude. So you're bringing people to the table, which I don't think we do enough of that today. But I had lobbyists. Here's what people don't realize. taxpayer-funded lobbyists. Your tax dollars funded lobbyists that tried to kill my bill. Wow. I went off in the committee. I mean, I lost my temper. It's really not what not to do, and but maybe the Lord wanted it to be done this way. And I told the committee, I said, every one of you talked to these lobbyists, haven't they? Every one of you, these lobbyists have come and went to your office, talked to you, hadn't they? And I just said, what's the biggest issue? Other than mental health and addiction, I think is probably the most serious issue right now. I mean, we literally just seen it in the front parking lot. We've seen a little episode with the police out front with homelessness, and I'd say there's a correlation with mental health. But affordable housing is probably one of the biggest issues. And your tax dollars funded lobbyists to try to stop my bill.
Wow.
And I just said government's broken. And somebody said, well, they come over to me personally. He didn't want to do it on camera. And he said, I disagree with you. I said, no, if it ain't broken, it's on life support. And the chairman asked me to roll a week, which I did. And I came back in, and they never would look me in the eye. Remember, these are my own members now, and some Democrats too. They wouldn't look me in the eye. And I went in there, and I kind of thought, what is my strategy? Because I've already ticked off a lot of people, and they had to recess the committee. It's on video if folks want to look it up from, I think, 2 years ago. I came in, and they just said, boom, bill goes out, and they passed it. So shout out to Jeff Peach, it's on Tasser, and several mayors across the state that served on Tasser. That Tasser report's available if somebody wanted to see it. I think if you Google Tasser affordable housing, you can find it's a 139-page study. But it doesn't go into creativeness like what you're saying, because to be honest, both you guys are wiser and probably smarter than everyone on Tasser.
Well,
I mean, seriously, because you've got the life experience, and you've done this.
And we have the heart.
Well, most people on Tasser
Charles,
probably haven't done
certainly
this.
reflects 95 years of heart.
Well, one day I saw a lady, furniture being set out, and I saw people watching, ready to pick it up, and I was just kind of amazed that could be happening. And she was at work, so I got a neighbor to watch the furniture, and then I went to the sheriff's office and I said, "How could a woman be, her furniture set out when she's not there to look out for it?" And they said, "Well, the law says that a landlord has 30 days. Once he has the eviction notice, he can exercise it any time within a 30-day period, but he doesn't have to announce the day she's going to be evicted." And so really what happens then, her furniture is just stolen, and she's no longer homeless. I mean, she can't rent an apartment because she doesn't have furniture, so she becomes homeless just by being evicted. And so I said, "What can you do about it?" And they said, "Well, get the legislation changed." So they showed me how to do it, one of the senators and everything, and the Attorney General, everybody worked with it. The Bar Association approved it, and we got it submitted, and then the lobbyists killed it because they represented the apartment owners who did not want to, didn't even have the feeling of wanting to protect the person's belongings, even though they'd been paying them money while they were there, even though they later couldn't pay. And so just, I'm sure there are lobbyists that do a good job, but it looks to me like they really run counter to anything that it has any heart to it.
Well, when you went back to about self-interest. I mean, and that's the great thing about the free market and capitalism and the entrepreneurial spirit. Most of us are self-interested. But when I see people that with the ego, one thing I've been studying a lot is just psychology, is those Maslow's hierarchy of needs and some other areas where you both reach self-fulfillment, which is the capstone of.
I do that after dinner.
Maslow, okay, you know what I mean? And, but I see people, so much chaos and division. You teach political science. Y'all had your class, and everybody got along great in class. Everybody got along great. And, but when people are more interested with their own election, with their own campaign donations, with their own interest of making lobbyists happy, then you see the country run amok. I'd blame a lot of the problems we got today on this. I mean, how have we got? I just yesterday I ordered some lumber from Crosby Supply, and I the was also buying a vehicle, so that I got the truck driver to give me a ride to where I bought this vehicle at. And me and him were talking. He's not 31 years old, truck driver, and would like work for Crosland. And I was like, well, do you own your own home? I'm kind of questioning. He was like, man, it's hard and life. And I said, I bought my first house at 22. And I think it was really because I had a father in my life that put the money up for me to buy my first car, which was my 68 Camaro, which was a savings account because it was a forced. I had to put that money in there.
How fast did you drive the little car?
We can't talk about that on the radio.
They knew you in the streets.
But I sold it, and then for $3,500, I needed the down payment, which is our business today. Which is, instead of being worth $60,000, it's probably worth close to $600. But I even went to the governor about vetoing the predatory lending bill, and he looked at me like, "What? Why do you care about this, Mike?" I said, "Because the next generation, my grandkids, and their friends and their cousins are going to be strapped with this predatory lending, and nobody's speaking out, and no investigative reporters." I mean, I'm not going to criticize, well, because we've got some, anyways. But I won't say the media sources, all of them. They're never going to look at this because they're in on the deal. You know this, don't you? I don't want to put you on the spot.
No.
They're all in on it, man.
They're
selling the ads that they're part of the problem because they've got their interest in selling revenue, which Title Max, they're all in on the game. And they're not going to speak out because that's their little honey hole of revenue. Charles knows this. He's 95. He's, somebody just sent me a leak. I guess this Tennessee Lookout's got a big story about it. But here's the thing about it. And it's like, who was it? Edmund Burke said, all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And that's what you see. No, all your pastors are silent. I bet you won't hear a sermon this Sunday morning about predatory lending. I bet zero.
Yeah, one of the most cruel things that exists in my lifetime is being able to charge 400% interest.
400% interest, and they're silent
today. They can't pay their light bill, and they borrow money then on their paycheck, against their paycheck, and it has a 400% interest. If they just pay the interest for 1 year on $500, it costs $4,200.
Wow!
I had somebody at church come up to me because he heard me talk about this, Mr. Jones. And the guy's very talented. I won't say who the guy is. And he come up, he said, Mike, I heard you talk about this one day. He said, my mother-in-law borrowed $5,000. And he says, I noticed, kept hearing my wife talk about her bank payment. Then she went back to borrow $1,500. He said, dude, I calculate she owes $14,000.
On a small loan.
And there's silence today.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because it's not a constituency that borrows that money does not have the political pull and the political strength to get it changed.
Well,
you're talking about the lowest income folks.
Well, this is also this is affecting the middle class
who are going on these type of loans.
Yeah,
they walk into their
they're unsuspecting. And I produced a video about this. I don't know if you've seen it. If you just went to Google or YouTube, type in Miss Helen predatory lending, Miss Helen Tennessee title pawn over here at Jackson Heights Plaza. And I filmed what was going on. He didn't know I said I was lost. I don't think he got it. I said, I'm going to video if you don't mind. And he didn't understand. But he was probably curious why a white guy's with this older black female. But here's how sick this is, folks. And if there's any pastors listening, this is so sick. You need to watch the video. I told the guy, I said, how much you charging her? He goes 11%. Well, I had my little old Android phone. I got a new phone now, and I zoomed in on the contract, and it's 132%. I said, "Hey, brother, what are you doing here?"
11% a month.
Yeah, 11% a month. And I said, and he looked. He said, "Well, you don't know the title pawn bill." I said, "Dude, I wrote the book on the car business. I wrote a book, Learn the Car Business Front and Profit." And I said, "Man, I can see fraud when I see it. All deception." I told him, I said, "Man, do you realize?" She's got a sister out here in the car, special needs sister, probably in her late 60s, 70s, battling breast cancer. Wow. The sister's now passed us. You realize if you took her car, because the repo guy had been calling her. His name was Dale. I don't know his last name, or I'd share it. And I told her, I said, "Well, you tell Dale that I'm talking to you." And she said, it was funny. She said that Dale said in a text, like, "You can't hide your vehicle." How do you not hide your vehicle? I mean, she don't want to get her vehicle, but she'd end up homeless without a job. And then she said, well, I've got Mike Sparks helping me. She said, well, don't you? Like I'm not involved in this. Like, I'm not going to reach out to you again. So he didn't want to talk. It's all in the video, folks. Go to YouTube. And it's so sick that everybody is silent today. And I don't want to use profanity on the radio.
No.
But I mean, I've sold 2,000 cars. And I've never done people this way.
Now, the only question I would ask you, and then I want to get back to Charles, because we've got some real value here. Did you ever extend the length of the loan? And I always thought 60 months was a traditional maximum for an auto loan.
Man.
Well, we're loaning it to you for 84 months.
Crazy.
And some poor person just bought a new car. 7 years later, they're still driving, making the payment on a car that was bought 7 years ago. What was the interest on that? Even if it's a 23% interest, what's the interest on
They're
it?
really leasing it and they don't realize it.
Absolutely. What projects right now, Charles, are you really passionate about that you're involved in?
Well, something that I spent $100,000 on just as a kind of an experiment was I put money in a credit union and let them buy payday loans.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the payday loan's 400%. We loan them the $500 to pay it off, and then they owe $500 at 6%.
Wow.
And they reestablish their credit if they make the payments. So they go from like $75 a payday down to $6 a payday, and reestablish their credit at the same time.
How can we expand that statewide and nationwide? If you look for solutions, that is a solution. If many of us, you make 4, 5, 6%, hey, I'm always comfortable with that. And you're able to, let's say, a 4 or 5% loan to an individual, small loan, so you are taking a risk factor, but not a financial risk factor.
Well, if you were to have some kind of backup, let's say a person is willing to buy payday loans and use their own cash and make basically 6%, but they're eliminating a 400% mortgage, and actually if the person were to pay the loan off at the end of the first month, it becomes reasonable because they deduct the money from the payment in advance. And so the ideal thing would be to have a fund available where you could buy payday loans and drop them down to 6% and pay them off before the end of the first payment, before the second payment is due. The payday loans would still make a return, above average, but it wouldn't be payday. It wouldn't be armed robbery, really.
I'll let Mike think about something before we take this break. Wouldn't this be a neat part of the portfolio for investment by the state on its investment pool?
Oh, you don't want the state. The state will screw it up. I mean, for real, the state can't solve your problems.
Oh, you just unmade my day. I was so happy.
It really is. The state's got their own issues,
I mean, a lot of cities place their funds.
What they could do is use some profit from the lottery, and use the lottery to buy payday loans, and then
they'll never do it.
But isn't that constitutional education? It's lottery committed to education. We'll talk about that in a moment, but we got to take a moment to have a few words from our sponsors.
Hey babe, let's stay in tonight. We're spending way too much money going out to eat. Could I get 500 in reds?
500 on the table.
Just be kind, okay? $8 for a couple avocados? What's the world coming to?
Place your bets.
There's no way it's gonna hit black 4 times in a row.
Good luck to you, sir.
You gotta be kidding me.
The Good Neighbor Network.
Hi, Zoe Saldana. Welcome to T-Mobile. Here's your new iPhone 16 Pro on us.
Thanks. And here's my old phone to trade in.
You don't need a trade-in. When you switch to T-Mobile, we'll give you a new iPhone 16 Pro. Plus, we'll help you pay off your old phone up to $800, and you still get to keep it.
There's always a trade-in.
Not right now at T-Mobile.
I feel like I have to give you something in return for karma.
That's okay.
I don't really have much in my purse. Oh, let's see. Hand sanitizer. It's lavender.
I'm good. Seriously.
Let me check this pocket. Oh, mints?
Really, I'm fine.
Oh, I have raisins. I'm a mom. Wait 1 sec. I've got cupcakes in the car.
It's our best iPhone offer ever. Switch to T-Mobile. Get a new iPhone 16 Pro with Apple Intelligence on us. No trade-in needed. We'll even pay off your phone up to $800.
With 24 monthly bill credits, new line $100 plus a month on Experience Beyond finance agreement $999.99 and qualifying ported. For well qualified plus tax and $10 connection charge. Pay off via virtual prepaid card allow 15 days. Credits end and balance due if you pay off early or cancel. See T-Mobile.com.
Premier 6 Theater on Broad in Jackson Heights.
Let's all go to the movies.
Check out what's showing at murfreesboromovies.com. Popcorn popped fresh daily.
Movies at the good old premises.
Premier 6 on Broad in Jackson Heights.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Bill Krau's final segment of the WGNS Radio Roundtable Thursday morning edition. And we have had a highly interesting and highly motivational visit with Mr. Charles Jones and the gentleman who recommended him to be with us, State Legislator, State Assemblyman, Mr. Michael Sparks. Two things. One thing, I never used the word landlord. I was executive director for a number of years, one of my nonprofits in California, the Apartment Association of Orange County. And I said, landlord is a demeaning name. It's taking the Lord's name. I call myself a home provider. A home provider. The second is, do you know where the word lobbyist came from? Lobby?
The D.C. hotel?
The Willard Hotel.
Yeah, I've been to Willard Hotel.
And,
have you ever been there?
Yes. Primarily to check out the story.
Yeah.
Where President of the United States, you've been in the Willard, the lobby, used to after work, talk about things changing, would walk over from the White House, have a gin and tonic in the lobby of the Willard Hotel, and more people wanted to get the president's ear, would go have a gin and tonic with them, and they were ultimately known as lobbyists. Yeah. Great story. Great story. Final comments. Are you optimistic about the future?
Well, the future is whatever you perceive young people to be, and I see some young people that have a quality level that's superior to what we had when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. So the future's in their hands, and I believe their hearts are better than ours were. So I think on that basis, the future has a good possibility. And there can be older people that maybe share some ideas that get taken up and utilized.
I am currently working in a summer program with disadvantaged children, 6 to 12 years old, on their reading, learning, and writing abilities. And literally, I'm trying to inspire motivation and optimism about the future. The two great challenges we have. Number one, children and people are not communicating with each other except by technology. Right. If you want to call and wish somebody a happy birthday, tick, 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 tick. Pick up the phone if you can't see them in person. Yeah. Give them a hug and so forth. But I would probably say, editorially wise, I'd probably say, in my opinion, one of the greatest threats to our young people today is gaming. Being on games.
Yeah, I think so.
And seeing violence. Little kids seeing violence 20,000 times in their first 5-6 years of life. And it suddenly becomes a norm. So you talk about, as you referenced earlier, Mike, mental health. Yeah. And you begin to think, is the mental health being involved by these things? I'm not for government to be taking a look at legislating everything and trying to create the perfect world. But at least if we talk to each other, at least we talk with a heart rather than just a mouth. we will be much, much better for the future.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic about the future, very optimistic,
Yeah.
because I see the young people at Motlow State, and that's just a small, small slice. But I see what's coming out of Rutherford County, and I see these young men and women, a sense of optimism. On the other hand, a sense of fear, because they don't know what the future is. Here you are, Charles, 95 years of age, and you've got a prediction and an avenue and an opportunity. What will the future be? If that could be conveyed to the 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old, and give them hope.
Yeah.
Give them hope and faith in the future and faith in themselves and faith
Well, that's what we got to get back to.
in life.
I've got a video and a program called Grand Mentor, and it came from a guy that worked for Microsoft. He was visiting my building, and one of the engineers there said, "Charles is my mentor." And the young man from Microsoft said, "Then Charles must be my grand mentor,
Wow.
since you're my mentor." And I asked him if I could use that term. And so what happens is, if somebody calls and wants me to share ideas on maybe getting a business started or something, it costs them $1, but they have to give the $1 to somebody that needs it. And so, and I invite other people to become grand mentors and really value what they know and be willing to share it, but ask the person then to pay $1 to somebody that's needy for each time they ask for information.
Somebody is calling you now to ask for your support and assistance. And for our audience out there, this conversation, not with me, we're going to leave that to Brian, but this conversation will continue. Both Charles and Mike are going to remain. A second person wanting assistance.
Charles, a busy man.
I guess this could kind of lead into it. If you were talking to, not one, I'd like to get people in groups, 3 or 4 high teenagers, early 20ites.
Yeah.
What 5 things would you, for $1, tell them what to do, how to be a success in life?
Well, first of all, I try to get young people to establish a relationship with their bank.
Yes.
And get acquainted with their banker. And if they find then an opportunity, their banker is the best possibility of being able to buy it. Plus, they will not only loan them money at a fair rate, but they will also give them information if they ask them questions. I've always felt that having a good relationship with a banker, for example, one time I have found opportunities, and like when Cadillac quit making the Eldorado convertible, I had 25 on order, and boy, the demand for them just escalated tremendously. And so the next year, I owned an Oldsmobile dealership, and I asked my banker, I said, if I buy 1,000 convertibles, would you finance them for me? And he thought for a minute. I told him what the dollar amount was, and he said, yeah, we can do that. And I was going to, it would have been sensible if I'd said 100, because General Motors wouldn't sell me 1,000.
They were Cadillacs?
Cadillacs.
No, the Oldsmobiles, when they were going to quit making Oldsmobiles,
the 98s and the 88s.
I sent in an order for 1,000.
Wow.
And they turned it down.
Oh.
They were only going to make 15,000. And but if I'd been smarter, I'd have sent it in for 100, and I could have been able to do that. They would have doubled in value the day that they quit making them.
Wouldn't you like to have them today?
Oh, yeah.
Warehouse full of them unused.
Yeah, it's.
You could fund that support to people paying the high interest loans throughout the state of Tennessee just with warehouse of them.
Let me share a crazy idea with you. You know, people in the industry have a different concept. I got a call one day, and Cadillac was coming out with a new type vehicle, stainless steel roof instead of padded roof or whatever. And the wife of the president of Allstate Insurance wanted to look at the new car before they came out. So we arranged for her to be able to go to the dealer show and all. And then she ordered a car, and when it came in, the dealer prepped it, and then we drove it over to the Sears building or Allstate building, and they re-prepped it, and she just drove out in it. Well, the next year he was playing golf with Henry Ford II.
Wow.
And he said, why don't you have her drive a Lincoln this year, or a Mark instead of an Eldorado? And the fellow said, okay. And then when it came time for him to come and do the photo op, the cars weren't ready yet, and the girl just carelessly said, well, we can send you a truckload of parts if you want them. and he had to reschedule his trip and everything. And one day he said, how come it was so easy to order a car through Charlie and so hard to order one through Henry?
Oh, that's a great comment.
But
great.
Once he agreed to do it, he probably handed it to somebody, and nothing happened to it after that. We followed the thing through all the way and prepped it and drove it over there just as if we were making the car.
This has been Bill Krause on the WGNS Radio Roundtable, and we've thoroughly enjoyed, as usual, our guest, Mike Sparks, who I can call Mike at the last hour. Mike, I need somebody to fill in. So Mike is great and just a great legislator who really does things for so many other people. And a real pleasure to meet you, Mr. Jones, Charlie, Charles, however we call. And I would best describe you not only as a highly successful entrepreneur, but I will totally salute you as a gentleman with a heart.
Amen.
A gentleman with a feeling, a gentleman with a commitment and passion to help his fellow man.
Let me do a little commercial here, if I may. We're publishing our first book, and it's called Memory Expansion to Delay Dementia.
Oh,
and,
wow.
And it's going to be published this month. It's already complete, and it'll be on Amazon. But I'm hoping that it'll help people that are 60 and older to really realize and utilize their you have two memory systems. One is your intellectual memory that from what you've studied, and the other is your experiential memory from what you've done. And this really features more the utilization of your experiential memory, and which is much stronger and larger than your intellectual memory.
I will now turn this over to our friend, associate, and colleague, Brian Barrett.